Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. We got a great show for you today, man. I got to tell you before we get started, the weather right now in Florida, at least where I'm at, is absolutely picture perfect. It's about 70 degrees this morning, not a cloud in the sky. I hope you're having as good a weather wherever you are listening. All right, we're going to talk first today about Biden Zooming with Z. In other words, Joe Biden had a late night. I don't know how how much cocoa did he have to drink to be awake? But he did a Zoom meeting basically with some members of his cabinet, some members of, I guess, the foreign ministry, the cabinet of President Xi of China. And apparently they got along pretty well, as you might expect. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then we're going to talk about this Rittenhouse case. You know, Kyle Rittenhouse, the young man that is accused of murdering some people up in Wisconsin after the George Floyd riots and all that. I haven't really talked much about the case because I've been kind of letting it play out, but it is winding down, and I watched the closing argument for the prosecutor yesterday, and he literally said, and we're going to play the actual video here in just a minute, but he literally said that Kyle Rittenhouse lost his right to self-defense because he's the one that brought a gun to the situation, even though several of the people that he killed were actually armed as well. So we'll get into all the lunacy of that. Before we go any further, I always at this point in the show have to talk about opportunities that you have right here with John Martin Talks. Look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. Click on the link BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited, and you will get factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition delivered directly to your door, as well as over 100,000 related items, including the same type of weapon that Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse used to save his own life. So if you're all about the Second Amendment, or you just think you might be and you want to experiment and all that kind of stuff, check out Big Daddy Unlimited, factory direct price and delivered directly to your door. And if you want to see just how great a deal you can get, check out the program that precedes us, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, an hour before us. It's on the John Martin Talks Facebook page. It's also on the Excluded Facebook page. You spell excluded by dropping the E and just spell it with a big X, Excluded. Check out Denny. What he does, Denny comes on for about 15, 20 minutes. He picks a few products from the Big Daddy arsenal. He demonstrates them, talks about them, but then he gives you the factory direct pricing you would get if you were a member of Big Daddy Unlimited. And you'll be so excited that what you want to do is click back above our video, click on that link, because you'll be helping yourself and helping the show. And you know, we see, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, you might need self-defense more these days than ever, and nothing says I love you at Christmas time more than a little stocking stuffer of some ammunition or a 38 snub nose or whatever toots your horn. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. This comes to you via Newsweek. Xi Jinping warns, and this is what they're saying, warns Joe Biden, you know, especially the leader of the free world, right? Warns Joe Biden China could be compelled to use force against Taiwan, because they talk mostly about Taiwan, and we're going to get in some details in a minute. But there's a picture, an actual picture from the Zoom meeting with Biden. Boy, I tell you what, man, don't you know that Xi was quivering in his boots wondering what Joe Biden might say. Well, before we actually get into the story, I want to play this video because I want you to understand who we're dealing with when it comes to Joe Biden. We already know we're dealing with a communist dictator and all that comes with that with Xi Jinping, right? So we already kind of know that. But I want you to see and ask you, what do you think after you watch this video that President Xi is thinking about Joe Biden? Because let me set this up. This was about a month or so maybe after Biden actually got sworn into office, God help us. He did a town hall meeting. I want to say it was on his favorite network, CNN, and he was asked about China, and this was his response. Check it out.
You know, Chinese leaders, if you know anything about Chinese history, it has always been the time when China has been victimized by the outer world is when they haven't been unified at home. So the central, to vastly overstated, the central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China. And he uses his rationale for the things he does based on that. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And so the idea, I'm not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China, and Taiwan trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. I said, and by the way, he said he gets it. Culturally, there are different norms at each country, and their leaders are expected to follow.
It's just crazy. Like, every time I watch that video, it just infuriates me. It really, I have to kind of take a sip here, calm down before I talk, because what Biden is saying, he's literally comparing China to the United States and the value system. And he's essentially saying that we shouldn't question the Chinese dictator, in this case Xi Jinping, because it's just different cultural norms. Now, I want to make this really clear. I hadn't talked about this in a while, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. I am not talking about all Chinese people, even people who are still living under communism in China, let alone immigrants to this country or people of Chinese descent in this country. I'm not talking about all Chinese people. And the reason I'm not is because a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but I cannot possibly, I don't want to even fathom that a majority of Chinese people support these cultural norms, these differences, because Biden just kind of glosses over it, right? He talks about what is happening in Hong Kong, and we're going to play you a video of that in a little bit. But in Hong Kong, where these people in Hong Kong are literally just asking for freedom. They want freedom, that is all. Now, and they're willing to pay a certain price for it. Some of them have paid with their lives already. Go back to Tiananmen Square. You know, this before Ping, of course, Biden was still around, but Ping's time, I'm sure he was a lower level official at that time. But Tiananmen Square, I should have put up a picture of the video of Tank Man, I call it, where he's literally facing off that tank. Remember that? I mean, so to imply that the Chinese people are somehow down with this would go against history. And Taiwan, I mean, think about Taiwan. Taiwan has millions of Chinese people that broke away, I think since like the late 40s, I want to say 49, don't hold me to that, and formed Taiwan, the only free country over there other than Japan, really. And so, I mean, to insinuate, that's why I don't want to do that. I don't want to insinuate that all Chinese people support these cultural norm differences. And then don't even get me started on the Uyghur Muslims. I mean, Joe Biden just brushes across that. These are people who are literally being rounded up, taken to prison, and having their organs harvested. And if you're into feminists, then check this out, feminists, because I'm a feminist in this sense. I don't believe that women should have cattle prods, electrical devices stuck up their private parts. But that's what they're doing to women, gang raping, forced childbirth, sterilization, all that, and sticking electrical prods up their private parts is what is happening to the Uyghur Muslims. But Biden says, oh, what's happening to the Muslims? Like it's no big deal, like they're just in some kind of, I don't know, boys camp or girls club or something. It just upsets me to think that we have a president of the United States, a guy who got the most ballots, God help us, in the White House, if he actually believes that the only difference between the United States of America, a president of the United States, and a communist dictator in China is just a few cultural norms. I don't care. You can hate Donald Trump all you want. You know, I don't get it, but I'll give you that. You can hate Donald Trump all you want. I don't see how you can tolerate what Biden just said in that video. I don't see how you can explain that away. Tell me, please, because I would love to know what your feelings are if you support what Biden just said. It just infuriates me. But let me get on with the story. And every time I see that, I know I play it, it's going to piss me off, but I do it anyway. But I'm hoping that it pisses you off too. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping reflected on tensions and growing differences over Taiwan during a virtual meeting of the two leaders Monday night. Like I say, I can't believe Joe Biden was up on Monday night, let alone any night. I mean, supposedly he goes to bed by about 8 o'clock. But maybe they got his cocktail mix just right. So Joe Biden, and I got to play another video for you because, you know, I just showed you what Zing would see about Joe Biden. And so just to show you a tougher side of Joe Biden, where he might get tough with Zing, I want to play you an excerpt from this video. We'll call it the Corn Pop video. Check it out.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did. And back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther,
the kids
you,
looking around like, what
off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off, and he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where mechanics, where all the pool filter is. You know, the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, you walk out with that chain. And
that's
you
good
walk
enough. So he's going out to meet these gangbangers with razors with a chain. I don't know if I believe that story or not, but I don't know if, let's just say if true, like the Democrats say, if true, whatever happened to that dude? Because this Joe Biden won't even, he's scared to answer a question, man, a fielded question, you know, they won't let me do that. But he wants us to believe that he's going to face off black guys, 4 or 5 black guys, I like how he talks about that, with razor blades, and Corn Pop was a bad dude, but he's going to go out there and face them down. You know, I don't know, man. You can't make this stuff up. So I mean, so which Biden is Xi seeing? The bad dude, the bad Biden with the chain, or the guy that's going, hey, it's just cultural norms. I don't really question what Xi does. I mean, he's got a free hand. That's pretty much what he said, right? Back to this story. The United States has reiterated that its support for Taiwan is rock solid. Yeah, I'm sure they really feared Biden's rock hit his head, maybe, amid rising friction with China over the self-ruled island. Although the People's Republic of China, basically what they're saying, the Communist Party of China, has never governed Taiwan, it claims sovereignty over the island, which it considers part of its territory under the One China policy. Now, I got to tell you, and I've said this before, but if I say it, certainly it bears repeating, I was hoping, among many reasons, that Trump would get reelected. You know, they keep talking about Trump was unhinged, and I'm hoping, and I was hoping in 2020 that Trump would get reelected, and what we would see would be Trump unleashed, because, man, that is what I'm excited about, and I'm hoping that Donald Trump actually runs again. If you want to see, we talked in depth about Donald Trump yesterday's show and the polling results out of Iowa. One of the best ways to see our podcast, of course, you could go to Rumble. You know, Rumble right now, good morning. We're on Rumble live streaming every day, YouTube as well. Good morning, Rumblers and YouTubers. But we're also on the Excluded app. We're on there, so you get the Excluded app by going to your app store, spell Excluded by dropping the E, put the big X up there, and you'll get Excluded app. And pretty soon you're going to see some footage that may or may not be up there yet about a great shoot they had, a shoot that Big Daddy Unlimited did outside of Savannah, Georgia this past week over the weekend, and it was spectacular, and I'm sure they'll be posting some video of that as well. But get the Excluded app. go to your app store, drop the E, put the big X up there, excluded. Check it out. My show is archived there on a daily basis. But we talked about how Trump is basically polling in Iowa way above any potential GOP contenders. So I was hoping that Trump would be unleashed in 2020. We may have to wait till 2024. And the point I make about that is I was really hoping, and I think Donald Trump would do it, I was hoping he would officially recognize Taiwan as the free state it is. You know, he's done brave things before, like moving the embassy to Jerusalem and those kind of things. So I was hoping he would do that, because none of these other yahoos have the courage to do it, probably even on the Republican side. But when it comes to courage, I think El Presidente Donald Trump, man, you know, remember how Donald Trump got beat down for saying there's some bad hombres, but Joe Biden can refer to black guys as bad dudes, and I don't care what your children did, they're going to have to be locked up, when he was talking about the crime bill. But nothing, but he's for the black people. I mean, it's just stupid. It's crazy, ignorant, and I hope people will get truly woke. At the conclusion, back to the story, at the conclusion of the 3-hour virtual summit, the White House said President Biden underscored the U.S. commitment to his own one China policy. His own one China policy. So wow. So that would really make you feel like, wow, Biden is coming for China. Distinct from his Chinese principal counterpart, that's Mr. Xing, guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques and 6 assurances. So there's all kinds of things surrounding Taiwan. In other words, there you go. Biden caved into his master. I love that meme, you know, because Biden is on the payroll, and his family too, and we'll talk about that in just a second. In its statement, China Foreign Ministry confirmed that Biden reaffirmed the U.S. One China policy and its long-standing position of not supporting Taiwan independence. So, and the White House has not pushed back on this, so I guess it's true that Biden has reaffirmed that Taiwan does not have the right to be a free nation, you know, that cultural norm there. The U.S. is willing to work with China. This is China's statement after this meeting. The U.S. is willing to work with China on the basis of mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. That sounds really good. Increase communication, reduce misperceptions, and handle differences constructively. So essentially what they're saying is we make you pay. In other words, you know, we make the stuff, you're dependent upon us, that's the way it is. Billy Bob Bass, in case you hadn't met my psychic sidekick here, this is Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. We're determined to stay in the social media square no matter what. So like us, share us, push us far and wide. You know, if you're going to be a viewer of conservative talk like mine, alternative to the mainstream media, you're going to have to be a bit more proactive and reach out and share this stuff. You know, I tell people, give it as an assignment to your kids to watch or your grandkids to watch our show for a week and see if they have any change of heart. But Billy Bob tells me that at least Biden got something he wanted. I said, what is that, Billy? He got his own boat parade there. There you go, Biden boat parade. You know, Trump had the boats going around, thousands of them saying support Biden. But this is, support Trump. This is the Biden boat parade, a backlog of freighters off the coast of California. The Biden boat parade. And you know, Buttigieg, and we talked about him quite a bit yesterday as well, and apparently there's a growing conflict between old Buttigieg and Kamala, Where's My Willie Harris, that they're actually butting heads because Kamala thinks that Buttigieg's star is rising. I talked about that yesterday. Remember the excluded app and Rumble and all of that kind of stuff. But the way I look at it, man, because Buttigieg has been talking about the supply chain, right? There's really only one reason why we have a chain. Yeah, they can put COVID, they can do all that. It really has to do with everything's coming from China. It's hard to have a backup if we actually make it here. And of course, Biden is this Christmas. I like that. If you don't know who that is, that's a character in the middle there from South Park. Check it out. But you'll get a kick out of it. But I don't know if we're going to have Christmas. I mean, Fauci came out just yesterday and said, we're going to have to batten the hatches down for the next wave and everything else. I don't know if you saw this, but California, man, they're getting crazy out in California, but some of it's crazy good. We had a couple of cities that I talked about a couple of weeks ago that became a Second Amendment free zone. And now we've got some cities pushing back on this vaccine mandate, and they say they're going to be an area of freedom when it comes to these mandates. We'll see. But a Biden Christmas is not looking too rosy right now. Back to this article. China Z told Biden that the new wave cross-strait tensions were the result, talking about Taiwan, of the Taiwanese government's independence agenda. I like that. An independence agenda. I mean, I think we ought to have an independence agenda, don't you? I mean, America first, baby. An independence agenda. But that is a bad thing in communist China. And the intention of some Americans to use Taiwan to contain China. I guess this is just one of these cultural norms differences. You know, people actually want freedom. And freedom is a big-time threat to a couple of things. One, to communists. Others to socialists, certainly to dictators. And freedom seems to be a big threat to the Democratic Party right now and their leadership. I wonder if there's a connection between all of that. Think about that and chime in. But cultural norms. I mentioned this idea about the Uyghur Muslims. I want to play, this is roughly about 2 years old, but it shows Uyghur Muslims in China being rounded up and taking off to, well, they're getting on a train, and let's just, get people being tied up and put on a train never ends well, does it? Check it out.
Shocking vision has emerged of shackled prisoners in a mostly Muslim region of China. The blindfolded detainees are from China's minority Uyghur Muslims, a European security source has told Sky News. The footage was published anonymously on Twitter and YouTube. China has denied widespread reports of concentration camps.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it always is a good thing when you're putting people on trains and taking them to concentration camps. What could possibly happen to those people? Are they simply being re-educated? Is it just a cultural norm? Are they trying to just get them to be on the right page, on the right side of history? I don't think so. From what I understand, they're actually harvesting. I talked about this earlier, and I'm going to try to stay calm, but it's hard for me to stay calm when I'm talking about somebody's organs getting harvested. When you talk about electrical prods push up women's private parts, when you talk about forced rapes and sterilizations and all that, these are the cultural norms, the cultural differences between us and China that Biden just kind of brushes over. So, when you talk about freedom in Hong Kong, people basically just being able to live when it comes to the Uyghur Muslims, and don't even talk about, what did he call it here? What did China call it? The independence agenda in Taiwan. Imagine that, man. According to Beijing's readout, let's continue here. We have patience. They're talking about dealing with Biden in the United States. China says, we have patience and will strive for the prospect of peaceful reunification with utmost sincerity and efforts. Yeah, peaceful reunification. Talking about Taiwan there, right. That said, should the separatist forces for Taiwan independence, there's that word again, provoke us for our hands or even close to the red line, we will be compelled to take resolute measures. Simple translation of that, if the freedom in Taiwan starts taking a hold over here in mainland China, well, you figure it out, right? I mean, it's over, right? The Chinese they're not going to stand for freedom to come into mainland China. So if it looks like it's starting to spill over from Taiwan, then Taiwan got to go. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken urged Chinese Minister Wang Yi, well, let me stop right. I started to read this paragraph, but let me stop right there. Does it really matter what this dude says? That's Anthony Blinken right now. Well, you remember when he went to, they call it the Alaska Summit, and they met China there, and basically China just read the riot act to him, and everything, and essentially talked about how the George Floyd stuff and how we mistreat black people, and so therefore America shouldn't talk about anything like Uyghur Muslims or freedom in Hong Kong or any of these cultural norm differences. And essentially we just sat there and took it hat in hand in our own territory, in the United States of America. Think about that. China came to the United States of America and basically told us that we're full of crap and that we're worse than they are, and we just sit there and take it. So I don't even want to read what Blinken had to say because it doesn't matter to me. And people ask all the time lately, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, you know, Biden, the worst president in the history of America. The jury's still, I mean, I'm ready to stamp him with that, don't misunderstand me. But I thought there's some debate there yet, and he's only barely started. He's certainly off to a good start to claim that mantle, let's put it that way. But one thing I think is conclusive at this point in the Biden administration, he may or may not be the worst president ever, because I think he's actually the third term of Obama, but that's just another story. But he's got the worst cabinet I've ever seen, because there's not a single person at the cabinet level position, let alone their underlings, who has any business being where they are. I mean, he's got this admiral in charge of like health care that is a man in a woman's dress. I mean, but this person is actually the highest ranking woman in America right now, and it's a man. I don't want to go down that tangent, but I don't understand why women, if you're truly a feminist, why would you allow the highest ranking woman to be a man? Or the woman of the year in sports to be a man in Bruce Jenner or whatever he's calling himself now. I don't get that, but you know, that's another story. But Joe Biden has the worst cabinet ever. I mean, look at Buttigieg, man. I mean, that guy, I don't think he could even manage a traffic jam in South Bend, let alone, you know, a supply chain and all that. I mean, I could go down the list. There's not a single, tell me where I'm wrong. Let's do one of them, tell me where I'm wrong. Chime in on Facebook or something. Is there a single member of Joe Biden's cabinet that is qualified really to be there? I mean, give me a break. But the worst cabinet. Maybe he may or may not be the worst president, but he's the worst cabinet ever. But let me ask you this, and we'll move on to this next segment. We've got a little lengthy part here. What did Biden run on? And I'm asking that for a reason. And what's he still in effect running on? In other words, putting his chips on. I'll give you a hint. I want to show, I didn't color it right, but can we show Z? I think we've got Z looking Mr. like COVID. Maybe I didn't know. There we go, right there. That's Z, COVID, King COVID, Emperor COVID, you know. Biden ran on COVID, right? I mean, basically he said that Donald Trump is going to kill us all, and I'm coming out the basement to save the world, right? He made that, it was all about COVID. And now it's still all about COVID because they dadgum sure can't run the Democrats on their current record, right? So it's all about COVID. And to think about this, even if you don't agree with me that it's 100% COVID, it's big, right? It's certainly in the top 10. Top 2, I would say. I think it's number 1, and not my words, but the Biden administration. But not one single word was mentioned about COVID during this entire call. Not a peep. Of course, you can't expect the Chinese to say anything about the Wuhan flu. But Biden and his administration, not one cabinet member, not one person in the call mentioned the word COVID or Corona or anything, unless maybe let's go have a Corona beer or something like that. Not one word. So if this thing is like the grave threat to the world, let alone the United States of America, wouldn't you think that it would actually come up? But not one word about COVID during this so-called summit. I mean, yeah, I love this picture. I show it all the time. Yes, sir, we miss you greatly. I mean, can you imagine if Donald Trump were president and they had this meeting? It would have been vastly different. I think it would have been a whole lot better, but you never know. But China now owns us more than ever. I hate to say that. I don't really enjoy saying that, but China owns us more than ever. Is it too late for us to turn the tides? No. but we're going to have to make some big time changes, and I think you know what they are. But China owns us more now than ever. Our only hope that I can see during the Biden administration to turn this around is to get the right man on the job. Our only hope. But there he is. There he is, Hunter Biden. But apparently he's taking a nap right now, so we'll let him be. And I wonder if Joe, as a gift, you know, these presidents and stuff exchange, maybe he gave Z a Hunter painting. Wouldn't that be an appropriate gift to give him one of Hunter Biden's painting? I say that about the $450,000, by the way, that they're talking about giving to illegal immigrants. Side note, I think they should just give everybody coming across the border illegally a Hunter Biden painting. They're worth like $600 grand, right? So there'll be money ahead. I mean, you know, Hunter. I think they underutilize Hunter Biden. I really believe this. But before I go on to this next story, I want to play this video. This video is a year and a half, maybe 2 years old. It is in Hong Kong when President Trump was still occupying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. God help us who's in there running the show right now. But I want to play you this video because this is another one of these cultural differences, that cultural norms that Biden just casually brushed aside. Check it out.
Resist Beijing! Liberate Hong Kong! Resist Beijing! Liberate Hong Kong! Resist Beijing! Liberate Hong Kong!
希望美國嗰邊可以喺聽日盡快通過呢個人權民主法案，令到香港可以真正有本身2008、2007有嘅普選，係中英聯合聲明承諾俾香港人。
It's amazing, and I noticed this years ago when I was living and working up in New York. We take freedom for granted here quite a bit. Not everybody, but we tend to take. We've been in basically a slumber, in a hammock, so to speak, slumbering since World War II. We've been fat and happy, and nothing against being fat and happy, because you know I like being fat and happy. So there's nothing against that. But we've kind of forgotten the price that was paid, and I'm just painting with a broad brush, what freedom, and the people that I noticed, like when I say about New York, there was a lot of immigrants up there, still is of course, and a lot of them were very successful. And people used to say, oh, it's because they get this or that and the other. And really, from what I observe, it's because they work the American dream. They work hard. They're very family oriented. I used to watch this Korean deli right across from where I was working. And the difference is these people like saved probably 90% of what they made and put money right back in their business, tried to get more of their family over here. You can't really blame them for that. And they just worked and pursued the American dream. And I've come to the conclusion that one of the reasons why migrants are so successful in this country is because they know what the alternative is. You don't think that those people literally putting their lives on the line in that video we just played, many of them are dead now, many of them in prison. Who knows what happened to all the Tiananmen Square people and everything else. But people who know what the opposite of freedom are tend to appreciate it a great deal more than those who just take it for granted. I'm just saying. And I said this earlier, and we're going to move on, earlier in some shows, that I think one of the greatest fears of the Democrats with all these immigrants coming in illegal, I'm not saying, I don't blame people for trying to get here, but I think we need a lawful, we need to protect and defend our borders. So I think people watch so you know where I'm coming from. But I think one of the greatest fears of the Democrats is that if they don't get people coming here illegally, no matter what, sucked into the government teat, sucking on that teat quickly, that's why they want to give them free health care, free housing, education, because they want them totally dependent on the federal government. Because I honestly believe that if immigrants actually come here and get a real taste of the American dream and what it actually means to be free in a capitalist system, that they won't vote for the Democrats. They will not vote for the Democrats. So the Democrats are desperate to get more people over, but they're even more desperate to get them totally dependent on the federal government. Anyway, I'll keep you updated about this, but it just breaks my heart to see that video I played at the beginning of Biden in the White House now saying that the only difference between China and us is just some cultural norms. It just infuriates me. I'm not going to go there again because I've calmed down. All right, before we move on, I want to tell you about another opportunity I have for you. Look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. Click on the link johnmartinhealth.com. That's johnmartinhealth.com. Follow the directions, no obligation whatsoever, just follow the directions, and you will get this $50 value, a bottle of zinc and a bottle of vitamin D3, $50 value, absolutely 100% free. Because one thing we should all agree on coming out of this pandemic that we've been through, is that we just need to be healthier as a people. And nothing will start you down that road rather than proper nutrition and supplements. So go to johnmartinhealth.com, accept this $50 free gift from you, zinc and vitamin D3. Thank you. Please check it out. I want you to have it. All right, let's get into this story. And this is from the Washington Examiner. And it's about the Kyle was it? I want to make sure I say his name correct. Rittenhouse, that's what I thought. All right, Washington Examiner. Prosecutor criticized House lost right to self-defense when he brought the gun. Crazy, right? And this guy right here. I want to point out this picture. This actually happened. I was watching it live when it happened. This is the prosecutor of the case for Wisconsin. He's holding up the actual gun that Rittenhouse used. He's pointing it, by the way, at the jury. He's pointing. Now, I'm assuming that the gun is unloaded, but you can't assume that if you're into gun safety. Remember Alec Baldwin's little old case where a lady lost her life. But this guy is pointing the gun at the jury, and his finger is on the trigger. And yet he's talking like he knows about the Second Amendment. He doesn't know, like my old uncle, so I started to say something a little vulgar, but I'll quote my old uncle. He doesn't know whether his fanny was punched or bored. I don't know if you get that one or not. But the lead prosecutor in the homicide trial of Kyle Rittenhouse claimed Monday the defendant lost the right to self-defense when he brought the gun to defend himself during a tumultuous night of unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin last August, promoting backlash from experts and spectators alike. So what this guy's saying, and we're going to show him in his own words here in just a moment, but he's essentially saying that if you bring a gun to a circumstance, doesn't matter the fact that other people were pointing guns back at you, but if you bring a gun, then you lost your right to self-defense, which is totally ludicrous, by the way. But just the flip side of that, if somebody else has a gun and they're pointing at you, then didn't they lose their right to self-defense and you have a right to shoot? I mean, it's just asinine. It makes no sense. I can't believe that he would even put this out there, and we'll talk about whether or not it's going to work in just a moment. But I want to play you this video. This is a very short snippet. I would encourage you to go to like Rumble or YouTube or somewhere and look up the entire, probably about 30, 40 minute long closing statement by this attorney, because it's amazing, okay? It really is. It just shows you how different some people are. I don't know if he believes all this garbage or not. He certainly does not know anything about weapons. We just showed you that. But this is this prosecutor, Binger, in his own words. Check it out.
Convince you that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant, because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people. The defendant fired 4 shots at Joseph Rosenbaum and caused 5 wounds total. The first shot convinced you that Joseph...
And it goes on and on from there. That's just a crazy statement. If you think about everything he's saying is crazy. Okay, the video that they actually play about this actually proves the defense's case, not the prosecutor's case. But let's just break this down for a second, then we're going to go into some of these words a bit more. But if you bring a gun to a situation, keep in mind, if you watch some video, that this Rittenhouse is running away from the scene and they're chasing him. And he is literally saying, I am going to get the police. That's pretty clearly heard. So he's running to the cops. By the way, the cops were nowhere to be found, okay, because they were standing down basically by order. So this was just a total chaotic scene, every man, woman for themselves, and it was sad. But it's just crazy to think that you can, let's just assume that others weren't armed, which we know for a fact many of them were. That they're going to run after this guy, knock him down, and try to take his weapon, which, by the way, ain't very smart, but try to take his weapon from him. So what were they going to do? If they took his weapon, they're going to say, oh, you can go away. They would have killed him. Is there any doubt about that? Is there anyone who doubts, even if you hate Rittenhouse, is there anyone that doubts that if they could have got his weapon from him, that dude would not be sitting, he would not be under trial? That's for sure, because I think he'd be graveyard dead. It's just me. But this is what this prosecutor said, and we're going to break some of this down. Binger said, you lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun. It's absolutely crazy. And he said, attempting to demonstrate his point by raising the firearm in front of the jury. I showed you the picture. He points the gun at the jury with his finger on the trigger. I mean, wow. Okay. He said, that's what provokes this entire incident. So the fact that Rittenhouse brought a gun to a gunfight provoked the whole incident. Not to mention they were burning stuff down everywhere, looting and pillaging. I mean, that's crazy. But he said that's what provoked. So it's Rittenhouse that provoked the whole incident. If you are the one who is threatening others, you lose the right to self-defense. They were threatening him. They fired shots in his direction. They pointed guns at him and said, when you're the one then you're the one creating the danger. And this part here, I don't have a video of it, so you'll have to take my word for it, but you could look it up yourself. But Binger, while he was talking about this, he actually said in the crowd of the mob, the people that were burning the places down, he said there were heroes all through that crowd. And he insinuates that these people that Rittenhouse killed, or in one case wounded, were actually heroes just trying to disarm him. Yeah, right. He also admitted by his own statements, he being the prosecutor, that a lot of these people that were in the crowd, they felt especially threatened by the bunch that was in Kenosha. And the reason he said they knew they were especially threatened is because they had been doing this all over the country. In other words, they were professional protesters. He literally said, and I can't believe he used this as a to prosecute this guy. He said these people had protested in Seattle and St. Louis. He just listed a whole, Lexington, Kentucky, professional protesters who were wearing body armor and everything and carrying weapons, but they were afraid of the Kenosha people because they pointed like laser sights at them or something. But he admitted that they were literally professional protesters. So what was this really about? Back to this article. He says this is a Dinger, or am I saying his name right? I want to make sure Binger. Get Binger. This isn't a situation, talking about Rittenhouse, where he was protecting his home or family, Binger added. Following his comments during the trial, the lead prosecutor became the subject of sharp scrutiny. He should have. But I like how he said this isn't a situation where he's protecting his home and his family. Yeah, he's not doing it. He's protecting his own life. I mean, he would have been killed, there's no doubt in my mind. But this idea that these progressives and these prosecutors, we got to take back these prosecutorial officers. We got to take them back from George Soros. I don't know if he funded this dude or not, but quite honestly, that's one thing. Take back the school boards, take back the state attorney's office. It's just crazy. But remember this video, because when they start talking about the idea of, if he's kind of insinuating this would have been okay had he actually been protecting his home and his family. Whenever he said that, this is what I thought of. Play it. That's the McCloskeys. I'm sure you've seen that outside their home in St. Louis when over 100 people crashed through their gate, brought weapons, had weapons on the scene, had already burned and stuff in St. Louis, came there. And the thing about that is those people were the ones charged. The McCloskeys who are defending their home. I mean, Miss McCloskey, man, she has got a set on her. Because she literally is defending her home with a prop pistol. It didn't even work. She has the courage to pull a pistol out on these people who are armed themselves, let alone they could just beat them to death with a prop pistol. I got to give that lady some credit. And of course, Mr. McCloskey is there with an AR-15 defending his home, and they got charged. The police never showed up. And Billy Bob tells me rightly so. The police did show up 2 weeks later to take the McCloskeys in custody. So this, I mean, the progressives don't want you to defend your home, man. So this whole thing is BS. The jury will ultimately, and I agree with this, decide when Binger's exhibit is compelling, or whether it's compelling, or whether or not Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. And the way I look at it, ladies and gentlemen, because I was watching some shows last night and they were getting people to think which way this is going to go. If it's based on the evidence that I've seen so far, then the jury will acquit this young man. I don't think there's any doubt about it if they make their decision based on evidence. But my concern is with the emotions. Remember that President, I think he was then candidate Joe Biden, actually called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. Knowing zero about the case, the judge even admonished, in this case, the White House and told the jury not to pay attention to that. So, you know, when emotions are high, bring some gasoline to the fire. That's what the left does every time. Rittenhouse said he feared for his life when Rosenbaum lunged at him. Herber hit him with a skateboard. These are the three people he shot. And Grosskreutz pointed a gun at him on the night of August 25th. So one guy is attacking him, another's trying to hit him over the head with a skateboard, and the other pointed a gun at him, and plus they're tugging on the guy's gun, the one he wounded, I think. I mean, the video that presented all this by the prosecution shows every bit of this to be true. I want to end the show with this. No matter what happens in the Rittenhouse case, there's no reason for violence. There's no reason for violence whatsoever. There really isn't. There should be no violence. I'm not saying there won't be, but there shouldn't be. And there will be if he's acquitted, because the left desperately needs this. They need violence to be happening. They need chaos on the streets. They need it to be all about race when this had zero to do with race. In fact, I think all his victims are white. It was white on white crime, I think. Don't hold me to that 100%, but I know at least two of them were. But the left needs this because they cannot run on their record. They need a distraction from how they're ruining the country, and nothing would be better than to burn places down again. All right, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that doesn't happen, by the way. But I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go to all our social media sites, like them, share them with others. Remember the free gifts I have for you, johnmartinhealth.com above the video, BDU, great stocking stuffers, all of that. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation and that we have peace about this verdict no matter what happens. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day. Thank you.